Well, I'm not sure. I don't know why AOC isn't dressed in white and crying for the dead whales that keep washing on the beach from wind farms that are being placed all over the ocean. And people are calling the alarms over how this is not only killing unknown thousands of bird species, but also causing whales to beach themselves at record numbers. But the real problem, Sean, is Pete Buttigieg.
Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. Welcome to day 757. The U.S. is on track to add nearly $19 trillion in new debt over the next decade, $3 trillion more than previously forecast. The Congressional Budget Office added that the federal deficit will hit $1.4 trillion this year, and that deficits will average $2 trillion annually over the next decade, as tax receipts fail to keep pace with the rising costs of mandatory spending on programs like Medicare and Social Security. The nation's current debt exceeds $31 trillion. Meanwhile, the U.S. could default as soon as July if the Congress doesn't reach an agreement on lifting the debt ceiling. Although the Treasury Department is using so-called extraordinary measures to continue making good on federal obligations, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office warned that the Treasury could run out of funds before July. Republicans, meanwhile, have refused to raise or suspend the cap until Democrats agree to unspecified spending cuts. Biden and the Democrats have so far rejected negotiation on spending cuts, arguing that lawmakers should raise the debt limit without any other conditions. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reiterated that an economic and financial catastrophe would ensue if Congress does not act. Moving on, the 19-year-old white supremacist who killed 10 black people at a Buffalo supermarket was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Judge Susan Egan said there can be no mercy for you, no understanding, no second chances, telling Peyton Gendron there is no place for you or your ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies in a civilized society. Gendron pleaded guilty in November to 15 criminal charges, including murder and first-degree domestic terrorism motivated by hate, a charge that carries a mandatory life sentence in prison without the chance of parole. Gendron also faces 27 federal hate crime and firearms charges, which could make him eligible for the death penalty. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice closed its sex trafficking investigation into Matt Gaetz and will not charge the congressman. Federal prosecutors and the FBI began investigating Gaetz in 2020 over allegations that the congressman violated federal law by paying for sex, including sex with a minor who he transported across state lines to engage in prostitution. Gaetz's close friend Joel Greenberg pleaded guilty in 2021 to 6 federal crimes, including sex trafficking involving a person under the age of 18 years old, and he agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. Greenberg was sentenced to 11 years in prison. And finally, federal prosecutors investigating Donald Trump's handling of classified documents asked a court to force one of Trump's lawyers to answer questions before a grand jury. The DOJ cited the crime fraud exception to attorney-client privilege, saying they have evidence that some of Trump's conversations with his attorney, Evan Corcoran, were used to carry out a crime or fraud. Although Corcoran already appeared before the grand jury, he repeatedly invoked attorney-client privilege and declined to answer certain questions. The DOJ's motion is seeking to compel Corcoran to testify. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditis.